I just noticed something in recording these experiences for you all, an emerging theme or pattern in my life about my paranormal experiences. And it just seems that repeatedly I've been involved in some sort of a time slip or perhaps a dimensional shift. I have another such story for you today. Hello, I'm Nefer Kefri. I'm your hostess with the Ghostess, and you're watching True Tales of the Paranormal. And now, without further ado, here is today's True Tale of the Paranormal. Now, briefly to recap, for those who have not been following my channel from the beginning, I've had some weird things happen in my life that seem to involve some sort of time shift or dimensional fluctuation, if you will. I've got the stories already on my channel. I will link to them below in the description. But there was an incident when I was around 11, and the upstairs apartment in my home completely changed, and a friend of mine saw the same thing I saw. And then when my mom went to go check, everything was normal. And then 15 years later, that apartment looked just like it had to myself and my friend when we were little. We had kind of did a time slip or something and went 15 years into the future. I don't know. That was one incident. If you like what you see, I ask that you hit the like button, subscribe, and share with your like-minded friends. Shares have gone way up on my videos, and I appreciate that so much because you're directly helping to get my videos out in front of new eyes. And also, above all, drop a comment. Comments really help to tell the YouTube algorithm that people are interested in my content, and so they'll show it to more people. Another dimensional shift occurred during what ended up being my first demonic exorcism, which was completely unintentional, but it just happened. And I came out of a room in a shop. The shop had been full of people. When I'd gone into the reading room with my client, when I came out to get a candle and ask for some help, there was no one in the shop. The shop was completely empty, and I was yelling for help, and no one was answering me, right? So I had to go back and deal with this situation by myself, which I did. Thank the Lord. Thank the good Lord who was with me, and thank you, Archangel Michael, who was with me. Got it taken care of. The woman was fine, but when we came out of that reading room, the shop again was full of people, and I went up to my boss, and I was like, what in the heck happened? Where were you guys? And she said, I never came out of the room. So that was something, going on. I don't think it was a time slip, though. I think that was the demon manipulating reality in that situation, but still, that is similar. Well, in this story today, it kind of harkens back to another story I shared in my video on the Fae and on fairies. And if you'll remember, my friend Jimmy saw fairies dancing in a ring on the roof of our garage near the summer solstice when we were little kids. And so that happened, in my yard. There was another incident in my yard when I was outside with my dog one day. And at this point, I was like about 16, I think, 15, 16 years old. And we saw a very strange creature that was between 2.5 to 3 feet tall, and its skin appeared to be made out of tree bark, and it blended right into the fence. Now that occurred in my backyard. So I knew by that age there was something weird about my backyard, And I've drawn a little schematic here, and I'll get that up on the screen so you can see what I'm talking about. But you'll see in my drawing where the garage was and where the side yard is, where the house was located in relation to what I'm talking about today. So what happened is we had an entire side of our house had a bay window in the dining room. And so this bay window overlooked the side yard, which we just called the backyard, even though it was on the side of the house. And I'm in there one day and I'm on the computer, which was on a desk right in front of this huge set of bay windows. And I'm typing away, doing some homework. And I catch movement out of the corner of my eye. And if you've noticed in my videos, I have this wandering eye. Well, when I'm doing close-up work like typing, I will look through this eye. So this eye will straighten out. And then this eye will go off to the corner. And it's a weak eye muscle that I was unfortunately born with. But anyway, so I was doing close-up typing work and looking at my notes. So I was focusing through my left eye, and through my right eye, I could see the side window of the bay window. And I saw movement out there, big movement, something big, something kind of like pinkish, kind of like a fleshy pink. And I'm like, what in the heck? I thought it was a big bird. And I thought, we don't have any birds that are pink. And I was from, Northern Illinois. You don't have pink birds up in Northern Illinois. And so I stop what I'm doing and I turn, and the head, what looked like a head, moved. And it was like this big bulbous head that was about a little bit larger than a football. It was all pink, and it looked like bumps or ulcers all over it. And the only way I knew I was looking at this thing in profile is because I could see an ear. I could see a hole for an ear and some sort of weird curvature lines around it that looked like maybe it was cartilage around the ear, but the ear itself did not stick out from the head like human ears do, And I'm sitting there going, what in the fuck? And so I jump up and I yell to my mom, call the police. She's like, what? I said, just call the police. And I said to my dog, come on, Desi. And so my dog was an Australian Shepherd, good-sized dog. I knew she'd be able to protect me from whatever this was. As I ran out to the front yard, because that was the nearest exit point from my house, would have been the front door. We had a side door, but it was on the opposite side of the house, so it wouldn't have done me any good. So I go running out the front door with my dog. As we get into the front yard, I realize, oh crap, I could see this thing's head through the dining room windows. The dining room windows were 8 feet off the ground because we had a house with a basement. So on the side yard, there are basement windows. So that the floor of the room I was in, which was the dining room, was already elevated like about 2.5 feet above ground level. And I'm seeing this thing through the windows, and the windows are elevated another, 6 feet or so. So this thing was like bare bones minimum, like 8-9 feet tall. So when I get out to the front yard, I'm like going, oh, shit, this thing's bigger than I thought. Well, my dog immediately runs around the corner of the house to the side yard, and as she's running, she's already snarling, and she was the sweetest, most wonderful dog in the world. Anyone who knew her would tell you that. All the kids in the neighborhood loved her. She loved all the kids. Super sweet dog. I'd never heard her snarl. And I was like, that thing's in the side yard. It might kill my dog. So I went running, no regard for my welfare. I did not want this thing killing my dog. And I go scooting around the corner, and she's snarling, and she got up on her hind legs a little bit. It looked like she was kind of tussling like this, and she was snapping. There was nothing there. I couldn't see anything. But she's up there, on her hind legs going like this and snapping and snarling. And I'm just like, and I just screamed, Desi! And then she jumped back. She got down on all fours. And she ran up to me, and she put her body up against my legs and turned around and was going to go into a snarl. And then she stopped and just kind of looked. Because I assumed by then the thing was gone. But when I'd gotten to the side yard, I should have been able to still see it because I ran through our house to get to the front door. And the thing it looked like it was lumbering. It looked like it was moving slowly. and my dog went running ahead of me. I know for sure she saw it, and she fought with whatever this thing was. My dog did not have a mark on her, by the way. She was completely fine. And so we're out there in the side yard just going, I don't know, and Desi was kind of walking around and sniffing, and she totally followed that thing's trail. From where I had seen it from the dining room window, she followed right along where that trail was, all the way to our garage, and she stopped at the wall of our garage. So I think when that thing materialized or came from wherever it came from, it either materialized right outside the wall of our garage or inside the garage or maybe somewhere else on the other side of the garage. And somehow, because this thing was multidimensional or whatever it was able to walk through the buildings. I don't know, because there was my garage there, and right next to our garage was a wooden fence that separated our property from my friend Jimmy's property, who was the first house around the corner from us. And then next to that fence was his family's garage, and then their backyard, and beyond that was their next door neighbor's garage. So see, this thing would have had to walk through all these buildings somehow. Well, the story continued. Little did I know, I thought that was the end of it. We see this weird bulbous headed creature, with looked like bleeding ulcers all over its head. I mean, the thing was just grotesque. And probably, let's see, this happened in the summer, and it was around Christmas time. So now it was about approximately 6 months later. And one of my neighbors, since it was Christmas, and this was back in the day when neighbors, they gave a shit about each other, and they would, bring food and stuff at the holidays. Well, we had this little old lady who lived across the street from us and 2 doors down, who was a really great baker. And she brought us a big tray of homemade Christmas cookies. And we were just like, oh, wow, and come on in. And so she was having coffee with my mom, and they were having her cookies. And I was in the next room. I had some sort of homework or something. I was back on the computer doing something. And then also my mom's calling me to go into the kitchen. And I'm like, okay. So I go in there, and she's like, hey, Mrs. Palm here has something she wants to tell you. I said, what? I had very little interaction with this particular neighbor. She was, one of my mom's friends. And, when you're a kid, you don't like hanging out with old people, unless it's your cool grandpa who lets you watch Dark Shadows after school like mine did. But anyway, she says, yeah, sit down. So I sit down. She goes, your mom was telling me you saw something weird in your backyard in the summer and your dog fought it. I'm like, oh yeah. And I started telling her, the whole thing. And she's there, and she was just so intrigued. And she says, well, I've got a story for you. I'm like, really, what? And she said that in a day in July, and we are both assuming it was the same day I saw this thing in our side yard, her house, her side yard of her property was directly across the street from the side yard of our property. And she said she was out there tending her roses, and that she heard a rustle behind her. She turned around, and she says she saw this giant pinkish creature, for lack of a better word. It was walking on 2 legs like a human, had 2 arms, but she said its entire body was this pinkish, mushy looking skin, and it looked like it had bleeding ulcers all over it. And I'm like, holy crap, that's the same thing I saw. And she's like, yeah, that's what I was thinking when I mentioned it to your mom, and she told me what you saw. And I'm like, yeah, and that was probably the same day. And then I told her my theory that I thought this thing was like interdimensional. I had just started watching Doctor Who, so I was getting into all that sci-fi stuff, And I was like, yeah, I think this thing was interdimensional because my dog fought it. And then when she was fighting it, I couldn't see it, but my dog could see it. And she was like, I don't know what that was. She says, I've lived in this house for 50 years, and we've never had anything like that happen around here. And I'm like, I said, I'm just so glad you saw it too. And she's like, oh yeah. She says, and that is something I will never forget. She says, you know, because she lived alone at the time. Her husband had passed away years and years ago. And she said, you know, to this day, that thing still gives, you know, it's been 6 months. I'm still having nightmares about it almost every night. I'm like, oh man, I'm sorry. I didn't have nightmares like she did, but, you know, I mean, she lived alone. I had my parents and my dog, my cats, you know, plenty of company. So I don't know what that thing was. I don't know where it came from. I don't know if this was just a one-off appearance or if it regularly walks this route and it just so happened to be seen by 2 people and a dog. I have no idea. To this day, I have zero explanation for this. So if any of you have an idea, or if someone else has seen something similar, oh, by all means, let me know in the comments below, okay? I would be really intrigued to hear your story. So, but that's it for today. One of my own personal experiences. So I thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed that, I ask that you please give my video a like, drop a comment to let me know, and also subscribe and share with your like-minded friends. I really appreciate the help. I'm just over 650 subscribers now. I need 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours to get monetized. And when I first started this channel, it was just for my family to save the stories. I had no idea anybody would be interested in these stories. So I am just so gratified and just so happy that other people are enjoying them. It means so much to me. Thank you. And hopefully I'll get monetized soon. That would be really awesome. So thanks a lot for watching, and I'm wishing you all a blessed week ahead. This is Neferkefri, your hostess with the ghostess, and you've been watching True Tales of the Paranormal. But, so